I've been waiting for this report. We've all been waiting for this report, and I meant to go live on it yesterday, but I want to get in here and talk about it. But Tank Dell is looking 10 times faster, way ahead of schedule, hasn't lost a beat. These are quotes coming from Aaron Wilson, NFL, KPRC2 Houston, but I've heard it from a number of different people. So this is not just one guy. Tank Dell, way ahead of schedule. Tank Dell, very underrated. Tank Dell going in the 3rd to 4th round turn in fantasy football drafts. Underdog Fantasy, promo code Smitty. They'll double your first deposit. Link in description. But when we're drafting on Underdog and we see Tank Dell at round, we'll call it 3.10 to 4.4. His ADP's in that territory. And you got Nico Collins, who I like. I'm not saying I don't love Nico. How do you not like Nico? Of course you love Nico. And I know a lot of people are in the Nico camp. Nico's now the number 1 wide receiver in Houston. I get it. I understand why people feel that way. I don't necessarily agree. I don't disagree, but I don't necessarily agree. I think Tank Dell, still a case can be made that he's the number 1 in Houston. He's the one that had the amazing rapport with Stroud for a string of games before he got injured. He looked like he was taking over the number 1 wide receiver role. It's very easy for us to remember what we saw most recently, recency bias, and say that Nico's the guy. Nico took over. And there's a good case to be made there, but there's a good case to be made on both sides. The bottom line from a fantasy perspective is that if both of them were neck and neck, maybe Nico, you would lean Nico because he finished the year strong. The rapport might be a little bit more recent and well established, maybe. And I don't necessarily agree with that, but I could get behind somebody saying that. I could say, hey, I totally understand you. But the difference is they're not going anywhere near the same ADP. They're not going anywhere near each other in a draft. He's going near the 4th round and sometimes well into the 4th round. He's going Nico, or I don't even have him on the screen. Nico's going at 2.4, 2.2, sometimes 2.1, but definitely by mid-second round. So when you ask me, who do you like better? My answer isn't just Tank Dell without any explanation or a caveat. It is going to be Tank Dell at cost. Tank Dell at 4.1 crushes Nico Collins at 2.1. It's a 2-round difference, and you could even say, give me a running back at, let's say you got the 1.12 pick, the last pick in round 1, the bookend picks. You go Breece Hall and Kyron because Hall falls, or Jahmyr Gibbs and Kyron, and you do the absolutely, you can't take a running back and not go wide receiver approach, but you do it. And then one of your next 2 picks is Tank Dell. You got 2 wide receivers. You got Gibbs and Kyron at running back 1 and running back 2. And then you get a Devontae Smith and Tank Dell. Those are your 2 starting wide receivers. I'm fine with that. At cost, Tank Dell is better than Nico Collins at cost. If we're talking about them on even playing fields, which we can't because they're not, we'd have a different debate on our hands. We truly would. Let's do a mock of a draft here where we're getting Tank Dell and different looks of teams with Tank Dell in round 4. So as my example earlier, you've got, Gibbs falls here. Hall falls here at 12 a lot of the time too, at the 1.12. And then right here, Kyron. Kyron's one of the best picks in fantasy football. But you're talking about Dell being this pick right here. And sometimes he falls Dell into mid round 4. So it's not like you even have to take him sometimes at 4.1, but it's crazy. The combinations of teams you can build, even if you wanted to go Hurts and figure out a way to go cheaper wide receiver, you get Hopkins and other guys in this territory. But really at this 3rd pick here, Devontae Smith, as I mentioned, this is my main example I gave already, but there's so many different scenarios you could deploy. If you had a different pick, let's say you didn't have the bookend picks and you had a pick that made you kind of push your luck a little bit, and you get Dell in this 4th round, mid 4th round pick here, you've got a whole different type of strategy you could deploy here. This is where you might go Jalen Hurts, let's say. And then right here, you're going potentially Puka Nacua, and then right here, maybe you go Achane. And you get a team that looks a little like that. Even if you go Dell in round 3 because you got to reach. And Derrick Henry, who keeps falling, I think he climbs. Hear me now. Henry. My rounds are getting crazy here. So let's just go H-Chan again here because I like that mid-second round pick. So Dell there, Henry here, H-Chan here. And then, I mean, good God, JJ's falling in the mid-first right now because of not knowing who his quarterback is. Rightly so, but it's a good value at mid-round 1. This is a fantastic look right here. This team is unbelievable. And if Dell was to fall into the mid-4th round, you get so lucky to get that, then again, Hurts is a fantastic pick, but if you don't want to go early quarterback, you want Joe Burrow later, you want Mahomes, my favorite pick in round 5. Mahomes is going about 5.1. Best pick in fantasy right now. Round 3, there's a lot of options. I mean, let me look at my thefantasyfootballshow.com rankings where you guys can all get year-round fantasy football rankings, bold predictions, trade calculators, you name it. I have rankings for Superflex, Super Rookie, Dynasty, obviously Redraft. They're all 365. There's no waiting for June. When are your rankings getting updated? They're updated year-round. But if we look at like a receiver like even Drake London in mid-round 3, or potentially, I don't know who else would. Diggs is going a little earlier than that. Not saying I even love that. Jacobs, I mean, look, I don't think this is going to last whatsoever. I don't think this is going to last at all. So please understand that by the time you watch this 2-3 months from now, this might not be happening anymore. But right now, Jacobs is falling to round 3. I don't think that lasts. I really don't. But that's a phenomenal start. H-Chan, Dell, JJ, Jacobs. The point is, Dell in this territory gives you a lot of firepower. And again, nothing against Nico, but Nico Collins in round 2 it doesn't hold a candle to Dell in round 4. It just doesn't. Tank Dell, fantastic news.
From the FantasyFootballShow.com studios, it's the Fantasy Football Show.